Peace and blessings, family. Welcome to African Spiritual Conversations. And we're back in the building after a little small hiatus, taking some time to take the healers to heal themselves, to get the work they need to do for themselves. So thank y'all,
That's right.
those
That's right.
who called and who inboxed and all that good stuff. At
Yeah.
maybe be back on Wednesday. But you know, part of healing and being with spirit means to take time to listen to spirit to get a breather in there so that you can be more effective in the work that you come to do. So thank you all. And we are back up in the building. How are you doing, Sister Ifa Moduwe and Queen Mother Yeye? How are you?
I'm fabulous.
Right on.
I'm doing great. Doing
Great.
great. Refreshed and
Look beautiful.
ready to go. Thank you. So do you. It's so good to see your face, yeah. We missed you.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. Today we're going to talk about how to self-assess and how to get help in healing oneself. Because that's a big piece of this whole thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, family, is the self-assessment. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about self-assessment and how to
Mm-hmm.
start in the process of healing. Because I think healing is something that's ongoing. But
Yes.
how do you usually self-assess something, dear sister? How do you self-assess?
For me, I pay close attention to my thought traffic, and you have to have a sense of kinesthetic awareness. So self okay, let me, I don't know, I guess I could work backwards from some of the challenges of self-assessment. One of the challenges of self-assessment is that you sometimes will get out of an alignment with yourself in a way that you've lost a sense of how you actually feel. Like, it's an ongoing thing. Self assessment for me is like a daily check in with myself. How do I feel? I'm constantly scanning energetically my body, and what I'm thinking about. And if I notice that I'm going off to the left too much, then I know that something needs to be addressed. Like, your your maintenance, spiritual and physical maintenance for yourself is an ongoing thing. Your diet changes based on what your body needs. Pay attention to cravings. You find yourself eating too much in excess, or eating too much of one type of thing, like sweets, or you constantly craving meat and all these things, or constantly craving something, and you can't put your finger, you never feel satisfied. Like, that's something that that happens to women frequently. Like, you can eat and you don't feel satisfied, and you think that it's not that type of hunger that you're trying to address, but you're still feeding yourself foods. Emotional eating, lack of impulse control, all those types of things are a part of the self assessment. So really, it's paying attention to yourself, and then sometimes it's getting still and listening, because your body and your spirit and your mind, there's a constant conversation going. If you're not consciously a part of that conversation, then there's a need for you to just take inventory. sometimes you can write down like the last three things that you did, and you can kind of see that things are starting to go to the left. There's a lot of ways to self-assess. So for people who are visual, oral, kinesthetic, it's all whatever your strong suit is in terms of perception, then that's how you need to pay extra attention to yourself, get still, and really take inventory of how you're showing up in the world and how you're showing up for yourself and how you feel.
Mm. What about you, Queen Mother? How do you self-assess?
Um, I self assess every morning. First, I salute my Ori. That's the beginning of my self assessment.
I say.
And then I walk, about between 6 and 6:15 every morning. And I go up a few hills and a few valleys, and it's nice and fresh and cool at that time of the day. No pollution. I go to the ocean. So that's the time when I am able to be fully awake. Well, pretty much awake, and
Yeah.
and think about things. I don't walk with people or dogs. Well, I used to walk with a dog when I had one. I don't have one now, so um, my son has one, but it's not mine, and I couldn't control that monster anyway. But anyway, um, I that's the time when I'm able to really go within, uh, observe nature, feel the goodness of the earth, the air, and the smell of the ocean, and all of it, and assess. However, for me, also, before any of that takes place, when I am in that dream state, early in the morning, when I first come back to this reality, that's the time when I'm most in tune with me.
Mm.
And for instance, this morning it was wonderful, and maybe this has to do with age as well, because I'm noticing that things that I haven't thought about in years, I'm thinking about now. So this morning I went back. I'm sure I've said many times that I come out of the projects, the Lincoln projects in Harlem. Um, and the Lincoln Project is 135th Street and Madison Avenue. Well, on 135th Street at Lenox, between Lenox and 7th, is the Schomburg Library. And so it wasn't the way it is now, because I'm talking about when I was a little girl. And that's what I went into this morning. And it helped me with my own self assessment, because the Schomburg Library um, shaped a lot of my young life and who I am now. Um, so I find that my backstory, for example, I told you about maybe it wasn't on here, but I did mention some guy, two guys that I lived with years and years ago. And
Mhm.
so when I think about these older things that happened in my life when I was a young woman, it triggers things that are happening with me now, and why they may be happening, and being aware of what is going on with me on a daily basis. So I self assess daily. Um, I self assess to the point of knowing that I have a lot of work to do still, on me. I would
Yeah.
like to be I would like to be more forgiving.
Wow.
And I thought I was. I really did. I thought I had that in the bag. But then something will happen and someone will say to me, well, why don't you call that person and speak with them? And me and my stubborn self will say, no, I ain't calling them. I don't want to be bothered. Whatever I say. And I
Hmm.
realize that that's something that I have to work on still.
Yeah.
They always say be the bigger person, but I ain't ready to be that big at this point. So, so I think we self-assess on a daily basis, um,
Mm,
if we're willing to look and to
yeah.
listen.
Yeah.
A lot of times we're not willing to really take an open and honest, a transparent, a trusting look at our own shit.
Hmm.
And you got to look at it before you got to own it. You got to
Yeah.
own it, you know, before you can do anything about it. Now,
Yeah.
even Madupe, you mentioned pay attention to your eating habits.
Yeah.
What I found happened to me, or yeah, is that I stopped eating. And
Mm,
when you have no appetite or when you stop eating, so the pattern can be either too much of something or
or
not
not in enough.
enough.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. So I wanted to just throw that in there. And just I check in with me every day as
Yeah.
also another point of self-assessment is this African Spiritual Conversations is a
Yeah.
place where you can self-assess,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, and
Hmm.
that's one of the joys of it.
It is. It is.
Mhm.
I like when I'm presented with new information that challenges something that I hold on to. It makes
Mhm.
me assess why I'm holding on to it so tightly, and then also what changes, how I can incorporate the information into what I already know, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes people will tell you things and you think, oh, it's bumping up against something that you believe. But it may also, if you can integrate it, like you have to expand in order to hold more information, in order to hold to make it all work together, right? And
Mhm.
then how, and I also assess if I'm applying that which I know to be true.
Mhm.
You know, when
Mhm.
things don't go my way, or they don't, not necessarily my way, but when things don't go well, anytime there's disharmony, like I have to assess my part in it, you know. I have to do a
Mhm.
self-assessment of, okay, what behaviors have I taken on? And then if it's something that I've taken on fully, like how can I take it off if it doesn't work for me? Or put it in a place where only need to use that when it's appropriate. You know, you're not going to always have the same reaction to things. I want my intention for myself is that I can be agile in my thinking and really be able to pivot more quickly. You know, I mean, when they say, when do you stop doing something that's not working? You stop doing it when you realize that it ain't working. But
Work it.
that's easier said than done, because
Mhm.
uh, if you've invested a lot in going in one direction, and sometimes people who have a somewhat of a warrior spirit, like, I most of my life I've been very hardworking, and once I get focused on something, like I'm gone, 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 gone. Like when I first was introduced to the tradition, I couldn't do anything else. Like I just didn't have that in my skill set to be that expansive. And so the older I get, the more I recognize the need to be able to also maintain relationships well, also, and so I'm always doing a self assessment, especially, you know, at certain points in the year. I like to assess, how am I doing with the goals that I've set for myself, or intentions that I've set for myself for that year, like to track my progress and um, create touchstones for when I know, so I know when I'm moving in the right direction. And
Mm-hmm.
then also, divination is a self assessment tool, because it's really about pulling information from your ori, from your own personal destiny, to assess where you are in terms of where the path is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because it's not gonna be finished until you leave. So
Exactly.
it's
Exactly.
not like you just headed for one great goal that is, I have fulfilled my destiny, and then you get to hang around and just be great. Like, you should be great on the journey. That's the point.
Mm-hmm.
So
Um,
yeah.
it's not oh, what's what I'm looking for, the destination. It's the marathon. It's the moving
Yeah.
through life, and it's the building of one experience will take you to the next and take you to the next and support you in the next experience, and it's like a pyramid, actually.
Hmm. Yeah.
You get your points, your foundational points, and that's why it's so important for us to groom our young people in the ways of uh, in our African ways, in our African
Hmm.
centered ways, so that they have a strong foundation and they're able to build that pyramid of life that
Yeah.
is going to take them to back home, really.
Yes. Yes.
Um, so yeah, self-assessment is really important. And then when you look at yourself and you see that there is something, you listen and you
Hmm.
look with your third eye and um, uh, your physical eyes, because your
Yeah.
body tells you a lot.
It does. It
Yeah,
does.
you
Pain.
so
Pain is
go
an
ahead.
indicator.
Hmm.
Joy is your emotions in general are indicators. People are
Hmm.
like, "Oh, you shouldn't, just don't believe your own thoughts and all this stuff." But yeah, it's not. It's for you to pay attention to the direction you're going. Is it really working for you? So I read this quote, and I think it was where did that quote come from? I want to say it was Octavia Butler, but I'm not sure. It says, nature obscures um, obscures information, not with um, cunning, but with splendor.
Mm,
So
that's a
you're
nice
getting,
one.
yeah, you're getting closer to the seed of a thing when you are, but it's the splendor that's obscuring it. So we like to unpack foolishness, like we like to dig into things that are about the things that we don't want. You know what I mean? And so if you flip it to the other side of the coin and you're looking for truth, you should be digging into the things of splendor. What are the things that bring you joy? What are the things that make you more alive? Go that direction rather than
Mhm.
the direction of your pain, the direction of your, we want to look at those things really closely, when if our eye is drawn also to those things of beauty, those things that bring joy, those things that bring gather good energy to them, then we'll find the truths that we're looking for, that bring us to the level of consciousness where we then pull the solutions out of ourselves. We can use our creativity for solutions.
Oh boy, that sure was well said. Now, I should have been
Thank you.
writing
Yeah.
that one down. That was good. Yeah. Um,
Thank you.
we have a tendency to dwell on the troubles and the not so good things, and we don't take the time that we should or that we could, you know,
Mm-hmm.
to celebrate all of the beautiful things that life offers us, and that life gives us. Well, we don't celebrate life,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and that is a gift uh, that we should celebrate. But when good things happen, we
Yeah.
sometimes say, "Oh, that was good," and then we move on to the next thing that's happening that's not so good. And if
Yeah.
you dwell on the things that aren't going as you would like them to go in your life at this point, then you're going to get more of the same.
Yeah.
So it just seems like it makes so much more sense to dwell on those happy times and those good things. Now, all of that is easy to say, but it's the doing of it that is a challenge.
It is a challenge because it's complicated, right? So how do you address a problem without laying in it? Do you understand what I mean?
Oh,
Like, how
yeah.
do so it's a that's the part that takes training, right? That's the
Hmm.
part that takes practice. That's the part that takes conditioning. So to exist in one space and be able to address a problem that really is outside of yourself,
Yes.
without othering it. You know what I'm saying? Like our understanding of the Creator, Great Spirit, Olodumare, however you call it, God, is that it's all encompassing. So in African spirituality, there's not like God and the devil. It's it's the Creator, and all it encompasses all of that. So the recognition that whatever you're addressing has come out of the same space is a thing that allows you not to fall down the rabbit hole of that negativity, and yet
Hmm.
be able to neutralize the problem. So that takes skill. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes we don't have the skill to do that for ourselves. When we find ourselves faced with a problem, it's already gathered so much momentum in our lives that we can't be objective, that we can't step out of ourselves and solve it. And so we rely on other members of the community to assist and support in that way, and elders to step in sometimes and do that work that we need to have done. So if you are wrapped up in the problems of a situation, no, that's time for for a self assessment, to really be honest with yourself. How far away from this can I get in consciousness, or am I so wrapped up in it that anything I do is really going to be feeding the problem?
Mm.
Hmm. Hmm.
You know what I mean? And that's a question that we need to ask ourselves. And so when we look at why we go to somebody else for spiritual work, just to bring it back to African spiritual conversations, we when we look at why we go to someone else for spiritual work, well, I could just do this for myself. You might could do it for yourself, but you might could not do it for yourself, because it's not about your ability, or even sometimes your knowledge base. Sometimes you have to step outside of that energy in order
Hmm.
to be able to actually address the full problem. There are things in our lives sometimes we can't get a bird's eye view of because we can't get out high enough above it.
Exactly.
We're mired in it, and then we
Hmm.
our conversation and everything is just making it balloon and giving it more of our energy and more of our ashe. We're feeding it, and we not even really aware. So
Hmm.
when you feel like you just can't get something off you, I just can't even stop talking about that. I can't even stop thinking about that. Ooh, every time somebody say that person's name, it just irks the shit out of me. That type of thing. Then that's when you need to have someone else support you in consciousness in solving that problem, because you're not going to be able to see a real solution to it without a bunch of chaos and calamity. Like, we have to be honest with ourselves about things like that. That's when you start thinking about I'm about to go get my pistol. I know how to solve this. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because and don't get me wrong, there are times when you need to just get some stuff off you, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
that usually is before it turns into a situation that has swallowed you up.
Yes.
But most of the time, if something gets to the point where it can swallow you up, you've been feeding it as well.
Yes, yes, and it's usually you've been feeding it for a while. Now, as you
Mm-hmm.
were speaking, I thought about Sabonfu Sameh when she says in one of her writings that, and this is what I believe we as Black people on this side of the Atlantic, this is we've lost this to a certain degree, and we must regain it, and that is the village.
Yeah.
The village um, supports whoever it is that is having an issue. If it's a husband and a wife, or the two adults in a family situation, they come either before the elders or the whole village to to gather the energy from the village that they need to work on in truth, transparency, and trusting, to work on whatever the issue is. And it's the same for an individual who has perhaps gone against the tenets of that particular um, group of people. Um, and they will all come together, and they always point out the good in that person, so
Yeah.
that that person can recapture that part of themselves that is their goodness. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and I find in our in the European way of thinking, it's always a punishment. It's always punishment instead of looking at um, the good points that this person has. Now, in saying that, it's a cultural thing too, because the people I'm talking about in oh God, where are they from? I can't think. The name of the country's gone from me. But anyway, in that culture of that particular West African country, they're brought up from childhood to have this mentality, this reality, this way of thinking. Whereas we on this side of the Atlantic have not had that kind of socialization, which is something that we have to begin to work on, so that we do have some kind of measure for those in our community who are doing the things that who need some self-assessment, really, because
Yeah,
they're
there
doing so.
and then there are things that are outside of self-assessment too, but to stay
Yes.
on topic, let me stay on topic.
Okay.
Um I okay, so the time that we were away from the show, I've witnessed people in community and family who actually have applied these principles, right? This is
Hmm.
how they operate. And the reason why it was so powerful for me to experience that is because I am clear about the uniqueness of the African and American experience. Those of us who are the descendants of those Africans who were enslaved on this soil, we have some unique energy imprints. We have some unique medicine within us, and then we also have some unique challenges. And so, and we share them, and we need to begin to share solutions. And so, seeing that, let me know that there are models here for addressing the things that are challenges here. right? And
Mhm.
and they should become more widespread, and that we need to lift those families and communities up in a way that, not to say that we should other them and make them exceptions, but to acknowledge what they've been able to create, and also use their methods as a model, right? And so, and this is all within the structure of African spirituality that I witnessed this. So, um, in terms of how we support each other in these situations that we find ourselves where we have to make changes, I've been able to identify four things that we need to focus on when we're looking at supporting each other, and also modeling behavior that we find that works, right? Because Ifa says go with the precedent. Like, if there's a precedent for your problem to already solve it, go with that. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Build on that, but solve the problem. Like, we already got a solution for this. Don't be out here suffering trying to reinvent the wheel, just because you want to be special. The thing is that there are times for you to innovate on spiritual technology, but if there is a precedent, then you can also just build on that and innovate, evolve that precedent, right? It's
Mhm.
so usually most problems can be solved with four things: wealth, wisdom, consciousness, and work. So either one or a combination of those four things will usually solve your problem. Sometimes you need money or wealth, you need land, you need resources, you need physical resources, and that will solve the problem. Um,
Mhm.
and wealth usually comes with a combination of things. In other words, if you find yourself in a situation where wealth or resources thereof will stop the bleeding or take it to the next level, you need the consciousness to begin to operate with the problem solved, right? You need the wisdom to understand reciprocity, gratitude, and how to continue to build on now what you've been given. You need to do the work that it takes to create reciprocity in that relationship. You need to also continue to build on that, and that may entail work spiritually, physically, mentally, whatever the case may be. So here's a way for us to look at things and assess either what we need to be asking for or what we need to give, right? So in a self-assessment, this is my, I got A is my problem, I need to deal with A, right? Before you have A, B, C, D, and on and on and on, and it's just building on top of each other, then you can kind of look at it and say a lot of people will automatically go to wealth, but that may not be the key to what you are trying to solve, right? So we're
Mhm.
looking for answers outside of the problem. Now, wealth, wisdom, consciousness, and work are going to exist outside of a problem. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? There are hardly ever just problems unto themselves unless we've taken something to the extreme. And if we can maintain a balance of those four things, then we still have the ability to build because the pillars are in place, right?
Right.
And so if we start to assess our problem, like, that's just a, I know it's a generalization, but it's also, those are keys to be able to start to assess how we can solve a problem. At what degree of these things do we need to add in order that when we solve the problem, it is in a sustainable way rather than just addressing the problem from the problem. Usually you just want something to stop. But how can you infuse one or any combination of these four things into the solution so that it's now solved in a sustainable way, and the person can build off that now not being the problem and go from there, rather than having to go back to what you were doing before the problem arose, because challenges are generally a product of moving forward.
forward. Yes.
Yes, or the need to move forward. So life happens regardless of how you feel about it. And
Mm,
so, no matter what, you're still getting older. So, um, whether you decide to age, whether you decide to grow, whether you decide to, become more yourself in the journey of life or do what life calls you to, you're still going to get older. So, if you don't, when we assess ourselves and others outside of ourselves who are either our responsibility or we've chosen to support them or just people that we love or friends, like that's well, I have to say, like, my ancestors gave me that as a framework to be able to build into, so that we don't have to keep going over the same ground. It's
mhm,
like we walk in circles to a certain degree. Now, challenges may push us back a little bit, but that's kind of how creation is, a rebounding force. Like, it bounces
mhm.
back and then it pushes you forward even more. So, as we become more ourselves, like, we can use that wealth, wisdom, consciousness, and work to be able to really till the soil of our interior landscape and then continue to grow, blossom, bloom, all those beautiful things that have been a part of our creation, right? Because we're part of this continuum. But when you think about what the continuum begins with, it begins with the creator.
Mhm.
Right, so it's a forwarding of pulling out what you as yourself, as your ancestry, 7 generations back, 7 generations forward, what you came here to create, what you came here to do, what you came here to push out into the world, your little piece of God that you came to push out into the world, because we are the way that spirit gets around in the world. So we look at the different manifestations and the things that we can call on to support ourselves in this journey. This is, to me, the beauty of African spirituality. We think of our ancestors, Egbe or Rishas, or however you call spirits in your own tradition or spirituality. We have these emissaries of the Creator that have maybe a stronger tie, maybe not a stronger tie, but it's still other energies that come and support us. So, how do we build those relationships in order to strengthen the push of our continuum so that it's stronger, it's gaining momentum, it's pushing more of the creator out into the world with, you know what I mean? And when I say cleanly, what I mean is with clarity, with focus, with ease, with grace, that we are now, the embodiment of that spirit. We talk about um, how spiritual gifts are evolved into a person and how you can nurture those and bring them out. That's just more of the energy that you're pulling through your continuum. In order, there's been people in your bloodline who did that. There are parables about how we have the experience of far away God, because there's a time when you do spiritual work, when you say things and it just instantly happens, it instantly appears. Nobody was daunted by the idea of magic that we have now. Like, we would think of that as just wizardry and hocus pocus, but the truth is that you do things shift according to consciousness. So
Yes.
sometimes that's the issue, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes the issue is that you need support in strengthening your consciousness so that you can get out of the way, that your humanity does not become a block to your relationship with the creator. The
Yeah.
thing is that you're trying to bring things from heaven, whether that's attributes, whether that's wealth, wisdom, consciousness, or work. You're trying to bring that from heaven. What is the solution to what's happening right now? Well, how do we move this situation forward? How do we grow from this? And you can't get it that wrong, because you're not going to ever finish.
Mhm.
You know
Yes.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We're just
Yes.
here doing the thing. So, like, relax into it and just take it on as a way of being. And then that way, we get to enjoy it as well.
Yeah. Flow. Go with the
Yes.
flow. Flow
Mm-hmm.
with it. Um, and these four that you mentioned, they're like a roadmap
Mm-hmm.
to your healing, actually.
Hmm.
and the healing of the nation, of the world.
Yeah.
Uh, but the flow, you got to flow. A lot of times we put up our own roadblocks. We put up a resistance to things instead of moving that out of the way and allowing us to just flow and be in rhythm with life.
Hmm.
Um, so I like these four things. I took a note. Well,
I I was a
well,
download, so I had to take a note too. But see, like it's okay. So one thing that's helped me greatly is I hung out with the people in the Unity Church for a while, and one thing that they
mhm,
always say is when you're in meditation that you get to a point in the breathing that the Creator is breathing you, right?
mhm,
So it should be you should feel a shift in the body temple that when you feel the creator when you get to that point in your meditation, right, where you're not now breathing breath but the creator is breathing you, so you feel the air and energy differently. If you do that, you can make a quick that's a quick self-assessment. First of all, it
yes,
gets the thoughts quieted, right, so you can really
mhm,
get into the spiritual side of a thing, but also you notice where the blockages are.
mhm,
What part of me is, and then that's back to when we did those weeks of talking about
the chakra.
chakras. Yeah,
Mhm,
that you what part of me is holding back the creator from breathing me, right? Because um we are not disconnected. We're always driven by, we don't beat our own hearts, we don't, the organs in our body don't work of our own volition. Now, we can damage some things but we can't break what we didn't make. So we have to be conscious that you're not disconnected, but sometimes you may have either from accumulated energy, thought traffic, all these things, you can create, there are blockages that can be there from you experiencing the beauty of your full self, right? But if you
mhm.
never forget how you are made, you never lose that identity of yourself as a continuum that goes back to the creator, then when the creator is breathing you, you can get very conscious very quickly about where the block is. So what's
Yeah,
going on? You
yeah.
fighting with yourself. You're fighting with, or like what I experienced this week, fighting with deities that are here to support me. Like we already said
Mhm,
we was gonna help you with this. Would you just do it already? You know what I mean? Then
mhm,
the
mhm.
struggle, I'm struggling with that because I'm dragging my feet out of some other type of feeling that is created from some thought traffic that didn't belong to me. It's just an
Yeah.
idea that was implanted. I took it on and then kept playing the tape. So
Mhm.
it's one of those things where that's required a self-assessment. But when it's in the thought traffic, sometimes you got to get outside of yourself. And divination is, let's say, the fastest way to get from point A to point B.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
know what I mean?
And it's someone, divination, yes, and it's also, it can be someone outside of yourself, uh, and someone that you really don't expect to be the catalyst
Yeah.
that say something or will look one way or whatever they do. It's exactly what you need at that point in order to see clearly and to flow and to move
Yeah.
forward. Um,
But let's not minimize that, right? Because seeing is a tool of divination. It's a part of it,
yes,
right?
yes,
All
yes.
diviners, no matter what type of divination system you use, that's a part of it because everybody's not. That's not everybody's thing, right?
Hmm.
Everybody's not gonna see everybody else's stuff or anybody else's stuff. Sometimes you only can see your own stuff. So let's say you can do that, but when we get into the idea of someone who's that's a part of their destiny is to be a diviner, it's there's a seeing that's a part of it, right? There's
Yes,
you have to be able to let nurture that as a spiritual tool and skill and have that grow as well as a part of your own spiritual toolbox, destiny, and the things that you came here to do. It's definitely a part of it. So, um, yeah, it's just encouragement for people who are practitioners, but also devotees and people who are, want to enhance their spirituality. Like, here's some ways to look at things that may be able to amplify the solution process, right? Because the reason why I am devoted and also initiated to E5 is for the completeness of it, right? That we don't just see the problem or where the problem is coming from, but also now here's some solutions. Now here's some way to amplify the good. Now here's some ways to, all of that is encompassed in that oracle system. So it's very powerful. And I just out of gratitude have to say, you know what I mean? I'm not proselytizing, but I have to say out of gratitude, like that is a game changer for me in my life, and I've witnessed it be a game changer for other people in their lives. And so when done well and to completeness with proper training, like it's an awesome experience. It's just a wonderful way to be in the world. And that's not the only place that it exists. Do you know what I mean? It exists in other African spiritual traditions, but we have to give credit where credit is due. African people have been on this earth evolving and creating spiritual technology. That's our jam.
Mhm.
You know what I
That's
mean? That's
that's
how
what
we
we
get
do.
around in the world. That's what we do. So, as a part of the disconnection in the slavery experience was to muddy that water, right? You can't take it
Mhm.
away from us because that's a part of how we're created. But the water gets muddied, right? And how much of your body is water?
Mhm.
So if
Mhm.
somebody can muddy your water, then that puts you in a compromised, vulnerable position where now your vulnerability is makes you maybe less powerful, or not makes you less powerful, but muddies your ability to push your power out into the earth. And so now it's like we want to focus on having people clear that up for themselves so that we can move to. It's always fun when we get to go together. I'm gonna go regardless because I'm not going down with the ship. But the truth is that it's way more fun if we get to go together. So I put a lot of energy into trying inspiring the people that I love, my people to wake up. Like, come on, let's
Mhm.
come out of this.
Mhm.
Let's sort it out and let's get on the thing. Let's just do the thing. Because the other problem is, like, we're in the world together and we're connected whether we want to admit it. Sometimes we be like, oh, okay, that's enough, I'm cool. But we are in the world together, and those people that we love in the world we are subject to each other's humanity to a certain degree. So now, rather than bury more black women,
Mhm.
rather than
Mhm.
um, cry out of our sleep because these women are being killed at the hands of other black people, black men, rather than bury more people who are being killed by the police. Let's make a concerted effort to activate our power. So be responsible for our own self assessment, be responsible for nurturing our own spiritual gifts, be responsible for forwarding our continuum, if for nothing more than to have a documented model, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that's why I said when I witness communities and families that work in these ways, like, we need to push them to the front and put the camera in their face, you know what I'm saying? So that
Yeah.
we begin to see that, like, this is possible, this is probable, this is happening, and then be inspired by that. And sometimes emulate, but sometimes also innovate and create and do what works for your family, but all with the understanding that here's what it looks like. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like, don't be discouraged in ourselves that we can't have loving relationships within our families. We can. We have loving relationships within our families, within our communities, with each other, within spiritual community. That this is all possible, probable, and happening. So let's get more of this.
Yeah, let's
What?
duplicate
Yeah,
this
let's do.
in,
Yeah,
in in your own fashion, in your own family, in your own community, in your own way. But
yeah.
it's possible. It's happening. I think about uh, oh gosh, the place in South Carolina.
Oh, yeah, Tunji.
Uh, that's it. Yeah, and so many others, so many others. Um, as we go across the country, from when I look
Oh,
back 50 years or more, and see what has happened in terms of different small communities coming together and really forging um, an African lifestyle and way of being for themselves, for the community, and the families within that community. Um, uh, we worked hard at that for all these years. And thank God that uh, our ways were preserved by some who had to die in order to preserve those ways, because it was illegal in certain places. It was illegal in Cuba during certain periods of time to even uh, speak the name of the Orisha. So we've come a long way, but we've got a joyfully long way to go.
yeah. We're
But
never gonna finish. Like
no,
this is the journey. You know what I mean? We're
mhm,
never gonna finish. We may finish one part of it, but I'm just saying, like, there'll be things that we will accomplish. Let me say it that way. But we're
mhm,
never gonna finish. And so I'm now finding that for myself, um, that I'm thinking more about taking those, working with the precedent. You know what I mean? Taking those things that work and building on those things in order to thinking thinking in terms of sustainability, right? As
mhm,
we build upon the things that work and pushing those that out into the world, that creativity out into the world, but also and on a personal level, but also doing things in a way that creates sustainable practices for people to live into, create systems that are sustainable and practices that are sustainable that people can live into, and also do that for themselves, right?
mhm.
Because it's also about when we talk about the continuum, right, that there are things that are not working in Africa
Mhm.
for us. Do you
Mhm.
see what I'm saying? There are
Yeah.
practices that happen on the continent that are not going to work for us, and
Mhm.
so we have to be clear about the consciousness piece being also a part of downloading spiritual technology. They're not saying that it's necessarily new, but it may be so ancient that it's no longer in practice in a way that we can look to and find a model for it, that we have to now be the model for it. And
Mhm.
so I really know that that's an important part for us to not be afraid of, right?
Yes.
Because it can be very intimidating depending on how you look at it. But the thing, like Rose says all the time, that I love and I'm realizing more and more, is that the work takes the energy away from the fear, so that
Oh,
when you're
yes.
in the process of doing the work, you don't really have time for that. That
You
as you
don't.
gain momentum, as you get evidence that it's working, then the fear starts to melt away, right? But you got
Mhm.
to put your toe out there, like yeah says. You got to do the work in order to. You have to do it even through the fear in order to establish a precedent for yourself, to gain that spiritual confidence, to get that spiritual currency that you'll spend at the time you come to the next challenge that is very intimidating for you. Then you got the currency to pass right through that, like, yeah, I feel a little scared, but I'm gonna do this anyway because I know this is how I get information that works for me. And then you push forward. So those four pillars they work together in a way that allows us to constantly evolve. And no matter what it is, it's gonna be wealth, wisdom, consciousness, and work that gets you through it in a way, right? And so
Mhm.
it has a lot of, there are some layers to it, but I definitely think that as a start for a starting model, you know what I'm saying? As starting the conversation, we'll build on that. But for starting the conversation, I definitely think that that's spiritual gold, and it's working. It's working.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You feel the fear and do it anyway.
We can't hear you, bro. Are you muted? Or are you just
Can y'all hear me now?
Yes, I hear
Okay.
you.
you?
Some
Okay, I can't hear you.
I'm
I
having
can't hear
some
you.
real internet difficulties.
You've
So
been out and in too.
yeah, my internet is acting a fool. I don't know how long I'm gonna be in here. So I gotta call Comcast. So I was able to listen to part of it on my phone because for some reason my phone, I can get internet on my phone, but
Okay, well,
this
I'm gonna go out and come back in and see if I can hear you because I can't hear you at all.
Oh,
all
okay.
right. So we're
Okay,
gonna do a
that's fine.
wrap up. Oh, you should tell her. Well, yeah. I listened to a lot of y'all conversation was great. I'm gonna wait for her to come back in so we can wrap it up. I hope
Yeah.
this internet will let me stay on long enough to do that. Because I kept coming in and out because it kept going off and it started before we even got on here.
Yes, yes.
So
It's because we were on hiatus and it's a little wonky, and I don't think you talked to it before you left.
uh,
And it said, now you got to be nice to me.
What
right.
happened?
It's energy. No, but it
Okay.
really is energy, though.
I
You
get it.
know. Mm.
I get it. Well, listen, we're gonna wrap this up only because I gotta get this internet fixed and I'm not gonna have a way to do that.
Oh, your internet's
Well,
Mhm.
out.
y'all was dropping them jewels because I heard part of it on my phone as I was trying to keep up with y'all by listening on my phone. So we are gonna get out of here.
I see.
Thank y'all so much for listening. We'll be back
Thank you.
tomorrow. Hopefully the internet will be acting much better.
Yeah.
But basically, what I love about this app is that even though I was going in and off the internet, it's still
Yeah.
rolling. And to me, that's awesome.
Yeah, it is.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
very awesome. So,
Yeah.
family, we will be back up in here tomorrow. Peace.
Bye.
Hold on, let me just get our theme up out of here.